Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Military Spouse to Millionaire. Today, we're going to be touching on some of those sterile real estate terms that I mentioned in my last episode, and I really want to focus on credit. What does the term credit mean in real estate? Who gives it? How can you use it? How can you not use it? And really, the reason I want to focus on this is because just about every appointment I've had for the last 15 or 16 months has included some degree of conversation on this topic. Normally, I'm talking to my buyers, explaining to them that in our market over the last year and a half, it's very commonplace for sellers to give credit to buyers. But what does that mean? What does it mean for the seller? What does it mean for the buyer? Credit in a nutshell, when I say credit, you can hear cash, money, dough, moolah, whatever you want to call it. It is actual funds, actual money. And I like to highlight that because when you say credit, it seems like this monopoly money, sort of obscure, like credit. It's money. It's actual money. So if I'm giving a credit, say I give someone a $5,000 credit from my commission, which is also another sterile real estate term. You guys, commission equates to paycheck. So if I'm telling you as a buyer or as a seller, hey guys, I'm going to give you a $5,000 credit from my commission, that means I'm giving you $5,000 cash from my paycheck. And when you think of it like that, people are like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing of you. But when you say it in terms of, I'm going to give you a credit from my commission, people are like, okay, great. So I really, number one, like to clarify that. If you have an agent who is giving you credit from their commission, you guys, they are giving you money from their paycheck, a paycheck that they use to support their families. They are, whether it's $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, be grateful for that. It is something agents don't have to do. It's always done in situations where we are trying to get a deal done for our clients, to go above and beyond when necessary. Be grateful. Don't just look at that and say, okay, thanks, because they're not obligated to do that. And I'm sure their family could use that money just as much as you could use it. So be grateful for that. Most of you are. I'm just putting it out there. Because most people, it doesn't equate to that in the brain when you just say it in that very sterile way. And that's what we're clearing up in this episode. So back to credit in real estate transactions, sort of the seller giving buyers a credit. What does that mean? Why is it happening so much the last year and a half? I would say every transaction that I've gotten into in the last 12 months, 15 months, going on 18 months, has included some degree of credit from the seller to the buyer. And normally it's to do a very specific buy down program called a 2-1 buy down, in which a certain credit amount is given. It varies from property to property based on the purchase price of the home, but a credit amount is given, and the lender who's helping the buyer can then do a 2-1 buy down. If you want to Google it, 2-1 buy down. I'm going to describe this. I want everyone out there to take a deep breath and don't come for me. This is not an ARM loan. Adjustable rate mortgage is not what this program is. So, that being said, a 2-1 buy down is where sellers are giving credits to a buyer, and that buyer's lender is then using that credit to buy down their interest rate 2% for the first year they own that home. So we're fictitiously talking for VA loans. Let's say interest rates are 5.5% right now. I'm not quoting interest rates. I'm not a mortgage broker, but I have done 72 transactions this year, and my husband is a mortgage broker, and I can ballpark tell you ish what he's been locking loans at recently. Let's fictitiously say it's 5.5%. And we get credit for this 2-1 buy down. You as a buyer are going to start at 3.5% interest the first year they own the home. The second year, it's going to go up to 4.5% interest. It's not until the third year of owning your home that you're going to see today's 5.5% interest rates. And that's if you don't refinance before then. You can absolutely refinance at any time that's reasonable and beneficial during this 2-1 buy down program. And if you have credit left over, that credit can get applied towards a principal reduction of the property. So it still benefits you as a buyer. I'm going to use a transaction that I got into escrow for like literally an hour ago. We got a counter offer. My clients are moving forward with it. These clients are buying a house that's $868,000. They are getting just about $18,000 in credit from the seller. So they're using that credit to buy down the interest rate 2% for the first year they own the home, 1% for the second year they own the home. And should they not refinance and they still own the home in 3 years, then it's today's interest rates. Doing that, getting that 2% reduction for the first year they own the home, you guys, saves them almost $900 a month for the first year they own the home. And this is such a profound thing to explain because it's not happening all over the US. I've talked to agents in other states and they have no idea what it is, but it's a very, very, very common thing here in Hawaii. And one of the reasons that our market hasn't stalled or lagged or had this drastic slowdown like some mainland markets. And that's something I always like to enforce to incoming families and service members that I'm talking to. Our market here is very resilient. We will find a way. Our market is going to keep moving. Now, why? Why, you ask, would the seller be willing to give up $18,000 of their profit? Because again, remember, this is not monopoly money. That $18,000 that the seller is giving is coming from their profit. So they're making $18,000 less. One, my clients did offer slightly over asking price in order to get the credits, but they're still protected by the VA appraisal. So in the event the property doesn't appraise, they still have the right to walk away with no penalty. But also, me being their very diligent agent, I looked at the comparable sales and I think that there is enough room. This property was priced well enough and there were comparable sales that are selling for slightly more. I professionally advised them that I think there's the wiggle room there to offer slightly over to get the credit. So sure, they offered $10,000 over asking price, which just for reference changed their monthly payment about $55 to get the $18,000 credit, which reduced their payment by almost $900 a month the first year they own the home. Something like $500, $480 the second year they own the home. So the short-term sacrifice of offering over asking price and having a $50 a month higher payment is worth it to get the credit. The reason that sellers are okay giving this credit is because people who have owned homes here in Hawaii for the last 3, 4, 5 years, they've owned during some of the most profitable times in real estate. Like we saw crazy appreciation during 2020, during 2021. People who are selling now, 2024, 2025, they've owned during some damn good years for appreciation. They have the equity to have that wiggle room, and they would much rather give that credit because it is so commonplace. Like me as a listing agent, I had 3 back-to-back listing appointments today. It's Saturday afternoon as I'm recording this episode. I had listing appointments starting at 9:30 this morning. It's 3:30 and I've been home for about 30 minutes. Every single seller I sat down with now has the expectation that there is a reasonable chance that offers they get are going to be requesting this credit of them That's how common it is. I'm briefing my sellers on it when I go to list their homes. And a lot of times I'll even put it on their net sheet, which tells them how much profit roughly they're going to make. I'll include that credit in their net sheet so that they're prepared from the beginning, knowing, hey, if I end up giving this credit, this is what I'm going to make. Sellers have the room more times than not to give this credit, and they're willing to do so to help ensure that their home doesn't sit on the market forever and that they secure a very good, reliable buyer that's going to get to the finish line. So I would say in my 7 years of doing this, and even like looking back at market data from previous years, I feel very comfortable saying that this is the most even, neutral market that we've seen here in Hawaii, probably in the last decade, if not more. Meaning, neutral market, meaning buyers have to be reasonable and sellers have to be reasonable. It is not like 2020, 2021, where sellers could just go hard in the paint and get whatever they wanted from a buyer. But it's also not like buyers can just go crazy and railroad the seller. Everybody truly has to cooperate and work together. You're going to get a little, you're going to give a little, you're going to get a little, you're going to give a little. Like, it's all very neutral. No one can be too crazy. Buyers want to buy houses, but it's a little expensive right now with the interest rates. So what do? The 2-1 buy down. Sellers want to sell homes. They don't want them sitting on the market forever. Give the 2-1 buy down. It's going to move quick. You're going to get to closing. You're going to still make a healthy profit. But that being said, buyers have to understand that you then get into contract. You then have your home inspection. Say there's something in the home inspection that you would normally request a credit for, because that's another time during a real estate transaction where requesting credits kind of in lieu of repairs is a common thing. Side note, most homes here in Hawaii are sold as is, which means unless something is hazard or safety related, the seller is already disclosing up front that they're not going to be making cosmetic type of repairs. If it's a leak, if it's an electrical issue, if it's something that's hazard or safety related, of course, we're obviously going to request to get those things addressed. And sometimes even when they are like hazard and safety related, a seller will want to give credit versus fixing the item because it's faster or easier, or oftentimes buyers prefer to have credit versus the repair because they can use the credit more ways in the transaction. And I'll get to talking about that in a second, how we can use credit in more than just the 2-1 buy down space. But when a seller is coming out the gate and they're already giving $18,000 of credit, buyers, you need to be reasonable. You have to understand that when we go to have our home inspection, the seller is probably not going to give you $5,000 more in credit. And if they do, they're probably going to say, okay, we're going to lessen the 2-1 buy down credit amount and give you, you're not going to probably net more credit because they're already giving you so much credit, which again, credit means money from their profit. They're already giving you $18,000 from their profit that they would be making on the home. So they're not going to then give you more credit for other things. That being said, other things that you can use credit for. That's the 2-1 buy down in a nutshell. It is by far, like I said, the most popular route that I've seen people going. But in recent weeks, as interest rates have started to go down, I've seen a few of my clients talking to Clayton, because that's really Clayton's job. It's my job to get you the credit. It's Clayton's job as a lender, or your lender's job if you're not using Clayton, because everyone out there in the interweb might not be using my husband as their broker, which obviously is fine. You use who you're comfortable with. Your lender, it's their job to utilize those credits to their highest and best potential for your situation. Everyone's situation is different. It is not one size fits all. So, as an example, a few weeks ago, we got a single lieutenant into contract. We got her enough credit for the buy down. She's only buying like a $500,000 property, which I understand everyone out there. I said only $500,000. That is the median townhome condo price here in Hawaii. So do not come for me. $500,000 is our median price for that type of home. She bought a $500,000 house. She got enough credit for the 2-1 buy down. However, she then said, hey, is there a way I can use these credits to cover my closing costs? The answer is absolutely. You can use those credits towards your closing costs. So what Clayton ended up doing was a 1-year interest rate buy down. So instead of 2% better interest, she's getting 1% better interest for the first year that she owns the home. So in our hypothetical 5.5% interest rate, she's getting 4.5% interest rate for the first year that she owns the home. And she's using the other half of those credits to cover her closing costs. This means that her $1,000 earnest money deposit that she made gets refunded to her back at closing. And when I give her her keys on Monday, she's getting the keys to her home. When I give her the keys to her house on Monday, she gets her $1,000 refunded back to her, and she has purchased a home for $480 because that's what it cost for her home inspection. And that is it. A single lieutenant buying a $500,000 property for $480. And the seller is paying for her to have 1% better interest rate for the first year that she owns the home and is covering her closing costs. Now, that's a pretty sweet deal. And I want you to really remember this if you're someone out there who is looking on the MLS or looking on Zillow and relying on those bullshit, absolute trash mortgage calculators. Stop relying on those. They are wrong. Number one, they don't take into account things like the 2-1 buy down, but they also might not be calculating interest rates for VA loans. They might not be compounding the interest daily correctly. There are too many variables for me to trust that you are putting into that algorithm correctly to spit out accurate numbers. We have Clayton for a reason. Let's use him, people. He sits at his desk all day. He's standing by, ready to run numbers. Let's talk about it. So many of you contact me and you're like, I can't buy a house, it's too expensive because you're not calculating the 2-1 buy down. And I know I'm nipping a lot of things in the bud here because I have this conversation with people a lot and everybody has the same sort of natural progression of objections. The next objection is, well, that's fine for the first year, but what about year 2 and what about year 3? And, can I afford those numbers? Obviously, you're going to know what year 1, year 2, and year 3 payments are from the jump. Clayton gives us those numbers for every house that we're looking at. I'm not going to take you to a house if those numbers don't make sense. But also, all things being fair, and I understand we don't want to count our chickens before they hatch and nothing is promised, but the odds are in 3 years from now, you're not going to be making the same pay. You're not going to be getting the same income as a military service member as you are right now. 9 times out of 10, whether it's our housing allowance going up or our base pay going up, we as service members, more times than not, are getting yearly pay increases. So yes, your payments will go up in year 2, will go up in year 3. They will never change again after year 3 unless you're refinancing. But your pay is also going up throughout that time. And well in advance, when you sign the documents to buy your house, when those payments are changing and have adequate time to plan accordingly. So we know we can use our credits for a 2-1 buy down. We know that we can use our credits for a combination of 1-year buy down and closing costs. But fun fact, you can use credits to pay your maintenance or association fees in advance. So if you have a $500 a month maintenance fee and Clayton has $5,000 or $6,000 of credit left over that he's looking to use somewhere, Sometimes he has paid for people's maintenance fees for the first year that they've owned their home, which means you can take whatever that payment is that he gave you and subtract the maintenance fee from that payment. Because whenever Clayton runs payments for us, he includes the mortgage, the maintenance fee, the VA funding fee, the taxes, the insurance. The numbers that he gives us are all inclusive of those things. So if he's paying your maintenance fees for you for a year, and say your payment is $3,000 a month, and your maintenance fee is $500, your payments for that year, that first year, are only going to be $2,500 because he's paying that in advance. You can use credit for that. We have even, this was crazy. It was maybe coming up on a year ago, so we were still very much in the space of like really being able to get a lot of credit for people. We had a family. I got them almost $30,000 of credit for their property. Clayton actually paid off $15,000 of their debt with that credit, which, just again, to bring it full circle, let's think about this. Credit comes from the seller's profit. So in a nutshell, the seller of this house paid off $15,000 worth of my client's debt, like credit card debt, a car payment. Like the seller's credit paid off $15,000 of my client's debt, which lowered their debt to income ratio enough to then be able to purchase the house and have the comfortable monthly expenses that they wanted to have. So whether we're reducing the interest rate, whether we're covering maintenance fees in advance, whether we're potentially paying off some types of debt, you can't just do it willy-nilly, and that's Clayton's lane, whether we're covering closing costs. The reason I've been screaming at the top of my lungs for the last year, buy now. There's never been a better time to buy, because interest rates have started going down. And as interest rates start going down, sellers are going to get more offers on their home because more people are going to be re-entering the market because rates are going down, which means these seller credits are going to start going away. I submitted an offer, 3 offers for a family the other day. We had to offer on 3 properties to get them in escrow, in contract with a house that was offering credits because the first 2 had multiple offers. So I'm just putting it out there now. This is your public service announcement. Buy now. Buy before rates continue to go down and you're back to having bidding wars, back to having multiple offers. If you want to take advantage of the market as a buyer, do it now while you can get these credits. I really, really, really hope that this sheds some light on credit as a term, and people understand that it is actual money coming from somewhere, whether it's an agent giving credit from a commission or if it's the seller giving credit from their profit. It is real money that someone's giving up and just deserves to be realized in that sense. So if you guys have questions about this, obviously I can't cover absolutely everything in a 20 to 30 minute podcast episode that I would want to really deep dive on this subject, but I really love that you guys are messaging me. I'm getting, a lot in my inbox, questions from these podcasts or people that want to have deeper conversations about these topics. So definitely reach out if you have other questions, and just know, again, those mortgage calculators and those numbers online are not accurate representations of what you could technically be affording. And take advantage of being able to get credits as buyers, because especially in our Hawaii market, guys, that shit is not going to last forever. I'm projecting by first quarter next year, it is going to be very few and far between, which to all of my sellers that I had listing appointments with today, don't worry. You probably won't have to give as much credit as I prepped you for, but I would rather prepare for the worst, hope for the best. If you don't have to give credit, great. But all my buyers out there, don't sleep on this. Okay, guys, that's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. As always, I would be nothing without all of you. Thanks. Talk soon. Bye.